From the FOX6 studios, this is Ask Contact 6. This is the segment where we bring in experts to answer your questions. Today, we are talking about debt. The Federal Reserve says 3 out of 4 American households carries some kind of debt. So naturally, people have a lot of questions about taxes, credit cards, bankruptcy, and so much more. Today, we have brought in 2 experts from Legal Action of Wisconsin to answer your questions. First, we have Kelsey Leopold. Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Yes. And we also have JJ Moore. JJ, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
We're happy to have both of you. First, before we get into our questions, would you mind telling us a bit about yourselves and the work you're doing at Legal Action to help people with debt-related issues?
Yeah, to start, so Legal Action is a nonprofit civil legal aid firm. We primarily serve the lower 39 counties in Wisconsin, but I'm one of the staff attorneys there. I've worked on our elder rights project as well as our human and trafficking project. And a lot of times, unfortunately, we have clients coming in that have issues similar to what the audience had sent in questions about today. So we do a lot of work on consumer issues within that.
JJ, is there anything you'd like to add?
I'm a staff attorney that primarily works on bankruptcy and a little bit of odds and ends of any other case that may need assistance, but a lot of cases come in to Legal Action regarding bankruptcy. We have a lot of cases open.
Well, I'm glad we have you here to help these folks with the questions they sent to us. We are going to get to our viewer questions in just a moment. I'm happy to say, once again, we got many submissions. So thank you to everyone who took the time to fill out our online form. We are going to get to as many questions as we can. Before we do, we want you to know it's impossible for our experts to know every detail of your situation, but we'll do our best to answer your questions based on the information that we have here. Well, let's get going. Reading our questions for us is our Contact 6 associate producer, Annette. Annette, what is our first question today?
We got a couple questions about debt after a person dies. The first one comes from Pamela in Cudahy. Pamela says, I'm 75 and still have a student loan. Does that debt die with me, or are my heirs responsible to pay it? And the next one is from Roxy in Waukesha. She asks, who is responsible for a debt of someone that passes away? So in summary, the question is, will my heirs inherit my debt?
I understand why this is concerning to these 2 women, and I bet it's a question a lot of people have. Kelsey, what would you say?
Yeah, so we get this question a lot. And in most cases, the heirs or the family members are not going to be responsible for the debt of the person that passes away. There are some exceptions to this. However, if you co-signed a loan for someone that passes away, you as the surviving individual then become responsible for the balance on that loan. Also in Wisconsin, if your spouse incurs debt, that is the benefit of the marriage or the family. If your spouse passes away, you as the surviving spouse then become responsible for that debt as well. And there are some unique situations where an individual may be legally responsible for the debt of the deceased, but those are kind of rare. It is important to note, however, if your family member passes away and it is a mortgage payment for a property or a car and the family wants to keep that asset, it's important to make sure that that debt is then paid, either the loan paid off or the payments being made. In cases of medical debt or credit card situations, typically that will fall to the deceased person's estate. So if they had any assets, that's then how those debts would be paid. It wouldn't become the responsibility of the family members. There was a mention of a student loan in there, and those are very, very tricky. The student loan landscape is always changing, but generally it would depend on the type of the student loan. So there are federal student loans where typically if a person passes away, that becomes discharged or forgiven, but you would need to send in a copy of the death certificate to show that the person passes away. For private student loans, those kind of follow the same line as other debts like medical or credit card. It would depend on if there's a cosigner, they would be responsible. Otherwise, it would go and get paid out through the estate.
All right. Pamela and Roxy, thank you so much for those questions. What do we have next, Annette?
Next is Lavender from South Milwaukee. Lavender tells us, I have so many medical bills and I'm trying to get help on how to pay some of them. I have to see my doctors often, but I also need to get out of debt. What should I do? So the question, how do I get out of medical debt?
This is such a tough one because I understand where Lavender's coming from, the need to see these doctors and take care of your health, but at the same time, you don't want more bills, especially if you already have medical debt. JJ, what would you recommend?
The best thing that you can do is talk to your medical provider or talk to the billing department. You can work out either a payment plan for a reduced rate so you're not paying straight a lump sum payment. Most people can't afford that. That's a difficult thing to do. Or you can also ask for an itemized bill, and it's usually amazing how much of the bill drops once an itemized bill is supplied, and that can be a benefit on going through. If you have insurance, making sure that the insurance was properly run, and make sure that there wasn't any errors on that. Otherwise, the medical bills can be there. They can be resolved either with planning, or if they get too overwhelming, you can always look into a bankruptcy, depending on what your situation is. But that bankruptcy may not be the go-to thing to do just to get rid of medical bills.
I was going to say, let's say someone doesn't make those payment plans with the hospital system and they let these go to collections. Is that a different story?
It is. So when the collection, if it does get sold off to a debt collector, the debt collector does buy them for a reduced rate, so they're not paying what the face value of it is. So you may have some more negotiating power with them because they've paid a lower amount, so you may not have to pay the amount that they're seeking. But you should ask for a validation of the debt through the debt buyer, and you have a right to do so. And by doing that, you can get the itemized bill and make sure the charges are you and not somebody else with a similar name. Or if you know, looking at the bills and saying, I never went in on that day, I was out of the state or I was not available, I know where I was on that day, you can definitely dispute those things with proof and maybe be able to negotiate on a stronger mark on it.
Okay. I'm glad Lavender asked that question. Annette, what do we have for our next question?
Yeah, excuse me, we got a couple questions about tax debt. The first one is from Linda in Milwaukee. She would like to know, is there a way to lower tax debt? And Kylie in Port Washington has this question. What do I do if I have a huge amount of unpaid taxes? Is there any help I can get with paying it back? So the question here is, how do I lower my tax debt?
Kelsey, is this an issue you see from time to time?
Yes, we do get questions regarding taxes, and it is very specific to each individual's circumstances in regards to what taxes are owed, who they owe it to. The first step, like JJ mentioned for medical debt, is to either go on the IRS website or contact to get a copy of your tax returns to be able to see what they are alleging is owed. For all debts, it's really important to review, double check, because there are billing errors, there are issues that come up which can be disputed, which is really key to catching right away. In regards to taxes, going to be very important to consult with a tax attorney to bring in the documentation you have to find out your options. They may be able to help negotiate a payment plan, get those worked out from you. In some unique situations, depending on your circumstances, consulting with a bankruptcy attorney may be appropriate in that situation as well.
And how would someone find a tax attorney or a bankruptcy attorney?
Yep. So in regards to questions, there is a really great resource. The ABA Free Legal Answers, I believe it's called, is a fantastic first step. You can actually go on there, post a free question where licensed attorneys will actually answer you specifically to let you know if this is something that maybe you should seek further consultation for. Otherwise, you're welcome to contact legal action. If we don't have the resources or are unable to help, we can also refer you to an attorney. Otherwise, the State Bar of Wisconsin, as well as the Milwaukee Bar Association, both have what's called lawyer referral information services. So if you go online and Google Milwaukee Bar Association lawyer referral services, that's actually a place where you can get attorneys in your area that are licensed or specialize in these specific areas like bankruptcy or tax that would be able to reach out for a consult.
Okay. Annette, what do we have for our next question on the list?
This one comes from Vicky in Milwaukee. Vicky says, I'm 69 years old and I have a student loan debt that ballooned to over $300,000. Originally, it was $170,000. I have tax debt, medical debt, and a small amount of credit card debt. I work and my cost of living has increased. It has been increasingly difficult for me to manage. I still have not filed for Social Security. How do I get out from under this debt? She says, help. To summarize, how do I get out from under hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt?
Thank you, Vicky, for reaching out to us. It sounds like a really frustrating, difficult situation for her. JJ, is this in your wheelhouse?
It is. With all those different types of debt, I definitely think a consultation with a bankruptcy attorney could be beneficial because it can look at it in a more in-depth, pulling your credit report. You're able to pull them from free from the annual credit report on a weekly basis, and it allows you to get a good snapshot of what all the debts are appearing. Even though that's not all of them, it can give you a good picture of it. But going through once again the student loans is looking at what the contract was and looking what who's responsible for those debts moving forward, as well as the medical debts as previously stated, but going through and seeing which debts could be included. The unsecured like medical debt can be removed, the credit cards can be removed in a chapter 7 bankruptcy for a fresh start. If you're looking to consolidate all the payments down into one, Chapter 13 might be a better one to get all the debts into one solid payment. But looking at your individual case with a bankruptcy attorney might be your best option, and seeing what debts can completely go away and what debts could be reduced down.
I think a lot of people are familiar with bankruptcy in general, but what would you explain the benefit is of going through that process to the person on the other end?
So it depends on which one you're going to do. A Chapter 7 is a fresh start. It's meant to get you back on your feet where maybe you were overwhelmed with unsecured debts or something along those lines. A Chapter 7 won't get rid of every single debt that you have, whereas a Chapter 13 allows you to consolidate the debts into one payment and allow you to get back on your feet in a 3 to 5 year period payment plan. But you have to maintain income to be able to do the Chapter 13. But it does allow you to pay student loan debts, municipal court debt, tickets, and even payments to the court if you owe the court anything like that. So like it just depends on the type of debt that you have and what your game plan is. If you're looking to try to pay them off, a Chapter 13 could be a possibility. If you're trying to just get a fresh start and say this was too much for me, a Chapter 7 would be the one to look at.
And when people start talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, is that when you usually start thinking about bankruptcy, or could it be a smaller amount?
It could be a smaller amount depending on your situation. You could file a bankruptcy for $5,000 if the debt is causing you to lose your driver's license and you need the suspension lifted. Filing a Chapter 7 to do that can lift it. So the amount itself can depend on what your situation is. I would say typically a Chapter 7, most people are between 20 to 30 plus is when they start to really look into a Chapter 7. But depending on what your situation is, you could look at it at a less amount if it can have a benefit for you immediately.
All right. Thank you for all of those answers. Is our next question from Alfreda?
Yes, she's from Milwaukee. She would like to know, does the government have money that you can get for a loan that you don't have to pay back? I've seen this on Facebook. Is it true? So the question, does the government offer free money for loans?
I think we all have to be really cautious with anything we see on Facebook, especially when it advertises something that sounds almost too good to be true. Kelsey, does the government ever offer free money for loans?
Yeah, so the answer to this is generally no. There are specific programs that might be available to meet certain needs that are offered, such as housing needs, if you need repairs, education, but they don't typically come in the form of free money loans or just money given to you. One big concern I would have is this coming from Facebook. Unfortunately, scams are extremely rapid out there. I mean, every time you go on, you see a link with this attractive words of free or help here, and be really, really, really cautious. Even if it's not on Facebook, any other social media, if you see something, I would recommend looking at like your government websites, a certified website, do some own digging on your own to see if it's something that's valid before clicking any links or giving out any personal information, especially in this situation that, that free money is generally not out there. Like I said, there are specific circumstances, but just be cautious. I think that's the most important thing, is be cautious and do your own verification before clicking. Unfortunately for scams, they're very prevalent, but there are some resources. The Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection. If you do see something and you're interested, is this legitimate? You can contact the Department of Agriculture, Trade and Consumer Protection to find out if it is actually something that is a legitimate thing for you.
Right. And I would caution anyone against things they see on Facebook that ask you to pay money up front in order to get money. You mentioned the ploy for personal information, which is also a threat.
Yeah, if you get a call, like phone calls are going around a lot, links to click on a text saying you're behind on money or the government's going to come for you, don't click those links. If somebody is calling you and then asking you to provide personal information, if it is legitimate, they should either have your personal information or hang up. And if they say, I'm calling from Social Security, I'm here to help you, hang up, find the actual number for your local Social Security office, and then call them directly, because you initiating the call to the actual organization, you can find out whether it was a legitimate call or not.
Okay, so Alfredo, we're a little skeptical about this one. I hope that helped answer your question. What do we have next, Annette?
We got 2 questions about taking out loans to pay off credit cards. The first one is from Leslie in Milwaukee. Leslie says, I'm trying to pay my credit card bills. I would like a loan to pay them off, but not close the accounts. I fell on hard times that forced me to use my credit cards a lot. Now things are good. I don't want to consolidate the cards in the sense of being done with them. I want to use them in the future, but don't want the interest currently to mess up my credit score. Is this a good plan? And then Alma in Kenosha would like to know, should I take out a loan to pay off my debt on multiple credit cards? So in summary, should I get a loan to pay off my credit cards?
Thank you, Leslie and Alma, for those questions. JJ, would you like to answer this one?
Well, the great lawyer answer is always, it depends on your situation. But overall, you can do a consolidation loan, but you have to do a lot of research. You have to really vet what it is, make sure the consolidation loan is going to be a fixed rate and not a flexible rate or variable rate, because you don't want it to jump up on you later on and exceed what you thought the payment plan was going to be. In addition, with the planning is, if you're doing the consolidation loan, are you looking to not to minimally use your credit cards? Because if you do the consolidation loan, you're on the hook. That's a contract. You're going to be bound by that contract with that payment. If you then go out and max out your credit cards moving forward, now you're back to having those payments that you were trying to get rid of with the higher interest rate on them. So it's a lot of planning. I would also make sure that you check the Department of Finance institutions. They have a list of loan providers that are licensed in Wisconsin. You want to make sure it's licensed and that they are able to practice and provide loans in Wisconsin before you enter in. In addition, those are probably the best things, is always verify and to do your research on them. I wouldn't jump into any plan haphazardly trying to have a quick fix. The quick fix is probably going to bring bigger problems later on.
Okay, so take your time, really research, and make sure you're working with a trusted professional at the end of the day. Okay, what do we have next, Annette?
This one is from Orlando in Milwaukee. Orlando would like to know, how can I get my credit score from 546 to 710 in a few months? So the question, how can I raise my credit score quickly?
Kelsey, is it possible to raise a credit score that quickly, or does it usually take more time?
Yeah, so it's definitely going to depend. One thing, so at Legal Action, we are a legal service provider. So when you have legal issues related to this, that's certainly something that we can help with. If there's a debt that's not valid, if you're getting sued on a debt. So in this situation, it may be important to consult with a financial planner. There are some great resources, especially in Milwaukee. Milwaukee has the Milwaukee Financial Empowerment Center. They actually have classes that can be taken in order to learn about how to increase your credit score quickly. Again, it's going to depend on your situation, what debts you have, what payments you're making. They also have one-on-one counseling that can help as well. Green Path Financial Services is also another great resource that you can reach out to get that one-on-one, because it really is going to depend on your situation. Goodwill as well has some financial planning. So in this case, it would be important to consult with someone about your situation to find out whether, increasing your credit limit, if you're not relying on that credit, what debts to prioritize to pay off. Like JJ had mentioned, sometimes consolidating a loan, but again, very dependent on your circumstances. So I'd really recommend reaching out to one of those financial resources to be able to have that consult, get that training, and find out what would work best for you.
If people are concerned about the cost of getting help, are those resources affordable?
Yes, I believe the Financial Empowerment Center in Milwaukee is free. That is a free service. Green Path, I'm not 100% sure, but I also believe that is a nonprofit too. So just when reaching out, just make sure to ask up front if there will be any costs. But luckily, there are some free resources out there to help.
Okay, thank you, Kelsey. Is our next question from Laquieta?
Yes, she's from Milwaukee. Laqueta would like to know, can filing bankruptcy a second time after 10 to 20 years hurt my credit score? So the question, will a second bankruptcy hurt my credit score?
JJ, what do you think?
So just like the first bankruptcy, it gets reported for 7 to 10 years. So if that first bankruptcy just recently dropped off, you might have had a change in your credit score. If you immediately go back and file a new bankruptcy, you're going to have a new bankruptcy on for 7 to 10 years that may have some effects on your credit score. It just kind of really depends on what you're looking at. A bankruptcy tends to be, if you have a score of 550 and below, you could see an increase upon filing because your debt utilization changes because the debts that your unsecured debts are going to be removed or set to zero because they're being discharged. If you're 550 and above, you may see a drop because you're getting dinged for the bankruptcy being reported on there. It just kind of depends on your situation, but it will be reported. The effect of it really just depends on where you are on the situation.
I didn't know a bankruptcy dropped off your record. It does?
It does, 7 to 10 years, because it's meant to give you a fresh start, but it's also, the credit report's meant to give creditors an idea of where they are. A lot of people, once they file for bankruptcy and receive like a discharge, they can't immediately go and refile a new bankruptcy because you have an 8-year hold for like a Chapter 7. So creditors are willing to loan money or give out credit at a little bit different rates, but the credit report itself will reflect it and look to drop off, because if you used it once, it's not going to be there forever.
All right, that's good to know. Annette, what is our next question?
This one's from Lynn in Milwaukee. If I file bankruptcy, do I have to include my car that is being financed?
Okay, JJ, do they need to include their car in a bankruptcy filing if it's not paid off?
Yeah, so when you're filing bankruptcy, it's a full disclosure. You're disclosing all your known assets, all your known debts and creditors. So your car would have to be listed. The creditor that has the loan on the car would have to get notice of the bankruptcy. But depending on what the value of the car is and how much of equity is in the whole car, you're able to protect up to $4,500 in car equity. So, and the car loan reduces your equity. So say the car's worth $10,000, you have a loan for $8,000. The car equity is only $2,000, so you can exempt it and protect it in the bankruptcy. It definitely should be disclosed. Do not hide any assets.
Well, that's interesting. So it sounds like they want you to be able to keep a vehicle so you could get to a job and make money and help make payments.
Yes.
Is that what it's intended for?
Yes, the bankruptcy is meant to give you a fresh start. It's not meant to take all your assets and things. You can protect your household assets. You can protect your car to be able to get around and do things that you need to do. Bankruptcy is not meant to halt all of that or take anything like that away.
Interesting. What do we have for our next question?
Yeah, so we got a few questions about retiring. Here's one of them. It's from Teresa in Heartland. How can I reduce my debt in order to retire?
I bet Teresa is not the only person with this question out there. Kelsey, what would you advise her?
Yeah, so this is similar, reaching out to a financial planner because it's really going to depend on her situation. I mentioned some resources before, the Milwaukee Financial Empowerment Center, Green Path, or possibly Goodwill, just to discuss what your current debt situation looks like and what options are going to be best for you with your needs or desires. I would also note, however, if you're using a different financial planner, or even in situations if you're trying to increase your credit and you find a credit repair company, go to the Department of Financial Institutions and check to see if they're licensed, if they're able to do that kind of business in Wisconsin, because that might be a prime spot for scams as well. You see a great advertisement for a financial planner who's requiring all these fees up front and they tell you they're going to help you. You want to make sure it's somebody that's licensed. Also reviewing your debts. Again, if you see something on your bill that is not correct, if it's maybe a fraudulent debt, or maybe you fell victim to a scam, unfortunately, that happens to a lot of people. Like, you are not alone. Reach out to us for help. That is something we might be able to assist with. We have a debt defense clinic within legal action. So if there are debts that you're being sued on, or if you find a fraudulent debt or became a victim of a scam, please reach out to us, because maybe there are some debts on there that are not legitimate debts that we can try to help take care of for you.
And someone can go through it with you line by line and everything you owe.
Yep. And if there is something, like I said, you don't recognize it, very important, we request validation of the debt. You can dispute the debt. We've briefly spoken about debt collectors as well. So if you do owe a debt and a debt collector purchases it and starts contacting you, you can ask them to stop. Like, you have the right to ask the debt collectors, and there are laws in Wisconsin that they need to follow, which unfortunately they don't always follow. So that's an area that legal action can assist with too. If there's debt collection practices, if you're feeling harassed by a creditor, they should not be contacting you, numerous times, calling at all hours of the day to collect on this debt. So those are some situations as well that maybe you're just feeling overwhelmed. You're not sure what the debt collection laws are, but you're feeling a little harassed. Feel free to reach out. Like, we can see if there's something that is going on in your situation that we may be able to help with.
Okay, great.
I just would want to
JJ.
add for the debt relief, before you enter into a contract with it, you may want to speak to the actual creditor you're hoping to negotiate with, because some of them will not work with them. They won't accept payments or anything like that. So if your goal is that, you may want to verify to make sure that they will work with a debt relief program if that's the route that you want to go. Because I've seen many people enter into contracts and realize that creditors that they were trying to pay off don't work with the debt relief program. So you may want to verify with that as well.
Something good to know up front. Okay, thank you. What do we have next, Annette?
Yeah, so we got a couple questions about debt while living on government benefits. The first one is from Rosa in Brown Deer. She says, I get Social Security. What can I do to finish paying my debt? And then Marilyn in Milwaukee writes, I'm on SSDI and I have a few things I owe, but I can't afford. Any suggestions? So the question here is, how can I pay my debt while on government benefit programs?
I'm assuming a lot of these people are unlimited incomes to begin with, and then you add debt on top of that, and it's got to be a nightmare for some folks. What do you think they could do, JJ?
So with the questions being stated of being on public benefits, government benefits, and being on Social Security, you are technically judgment proof, which means creditors could get a judgment against you, but they can't collect from you. They can't garnish your Social Security. They can't take anything out of if those are your only sources of income. Your bank account is protected. If that's being deposited into your bank account, they're not going to be able to withdraw money from there. So I always tell people, if you're judgment proof, focus on the necessities: housing, food, gas to get around if you need to get to places like that, prescriptions so you can stay as healthy as you can be for those things. But I wouldn't focus on any of the other outside things. If you can't manage a credit card, you are judgment proof. While you're obligated to pay legally, if they can't draw blood from a stone. Like, it's not going to be something where they can actually collect from you. I would focus on the necessities to do it. If you're looking to resolve, once again, you can consult with a bankruptcy attorney if you're looking into that procedure, if it does get overwhelming, or you can look into consolidations in that and see if those plans are working out. But you are protected with the Social Security. And if you're on federal benefits like food share, Badger Care, if you return to employment and you lose those benefits, those protections still last for an additional 6 months after to allow you to get back on your feet. So you don't have to worry about facing a garnishment immediately upon returning. You still have those protections, and you can complete like debtor's answers to your employer, and that will get sent over to the creditor to say like, hey, I'm still protected. I still don't garnish my wages.
That was something else new that I learned today. I didn't realize. I'm going to repeat it. They can't garnish Social Security or SSDI.
For unsecured like credit cards and stuff, no.
Right.
Like if you owe student loans, government, things like that, that's a different thing. You'd have to really look into the type of debt that you owe. But if it's unsecured credit cards, debt collectors, stuff like that, they're not going to be able to garnish. You're going to be fully protected, judgment proof.
That is very good to know. What is our next question?
So we got a couple questions about debt and credit concerns. The first one is from Lynette in Menominee Falls. She says, I have made so many financial mistakes, including borrowing from my 401k. How do I restart with my savings and credit? And then Lathima from West Allis writes, what is the best way to try to fix your credit and build it back up after debt, while also still paying other important bills? So to summarize the questions, how do I pay my debts and build credit?
Kelsey, would you like to address this one?
Yeah, and I think Lathima had mentioned, paying important bills. Number one, like that's the most important, prioritizing what needs to be paid and making sure that's paid, because there are consequences if you have a mortgage on a house or if you are renting a property and you don't pay that rent or you don't pay your mortgage, you could be at risk of getting a foreclosure or even an eviction action. As JJ had mentioned too, paying obviously food, very important. If you have an auto loan, you don't want to risk that car being repossessed. So making sure those payments are made. So really prioritizing. From there, it is going to depend on what other debts that you have. In some circumstances, maybe consolidating will be a benefit for you. In some circumstances, maybe bankruptcy will be something that will help you, but it's really, again, reaching out to a financial resource to be able to discuss your specific situation. The Financial Empowerment Center that I had mentioned before, they do help with trying to increase your credit. One thing I will mention, there are a lot of companies out there that might advertise guarantees of we're going to help you get your credit from X to X in this amount of time. Be very wary of hard guarantees that are given to you before somebody looks at your information, because there is no way to guarantee that. So that would be kind of a sign that maybe this is scammy, or maybe this is a situation where they're trying to get money from me and then they're not going to end up helping me. So make sure if you are looking into those types of resources to help you, again, checking the Department of Financial Institutions to make sure it's a licensed resource, being very wary of scams as well. Don't provide your personal information unless it's an agency that you have looked into that you find is legitimate. But really, financial planning is going to be really important. Kind of making a list of, here's all the debts that I think that I have. Like JJ mentioned as well, every week you can get a free copy of your credit report from annualcreditreport.com.
And it doesn't hurt your score?
Doesn't hurt your score. It's not a hard pull. So you can review that. If there's anything on there that you don't know about, if there's anything on there that you dispute, making those disputes. It can also be a way in the private student loan landscape. Sometimes people are like, I have a loan. I don't know who it's from. Pulling your credit report, reviewing it can sometimes show you, oh, okay, that's who I'm making payments to. That's who I owe money to. So referring to that and having that available is a really good resource too, because it helps you kind of prioritize or understand where you're at. And then you can think about where you want to go.
All right. JG, did you want to add anything?
No.
All right, we'll move on. Annette, what do we have?
We got a few questions about debt consolidation. The first one is from Cheryl in Mequon. Cheryl writes, I have way too much high interest credit card debt and 2 personal loans. I was considering debt consolidation. I also have a Parent Plus loan for my son's college. Is debt consolidation a good idea? If so, who is reputable that can trust to steer me in the right direction? And then Sharon in Milwaukee, she would like to know, what is a good way to consolidate your credit card debt into one? If you are going through a consolidation with a company, are you paying them as well? She says, I have less than $13,000 in credit card debt and pay at least $1,000 to $1,500 a month on credit cards. So the question here is debt consolidation a good idea?
We've talked a little bit about debt consolidation, but I think it'd be worth diving into it a bit more. JJ, what do you think?
Well, talking to a financial planner is always going to be the best idea of what you're looking to do. Researching the companies that you're looking into to make sure that they're licensed in Wisconsin, as we previously stated, is the best course to start with. Debt consolidation is not for everyone. If you are thinking about doing a debt consolidation and then immediately looking to max out credit cards or use your credit cards at full force, you might end up in the same spot with more debt. And when you do sign a contract, because it is a contract with a debt consolidator, you are now bound to that contract. So you're going to have the lump sum that gets paid. Usually, the interest is being paid to a portion of it is being paid to the debt consolidator, and then you're paying down your other main principal debt on there. So all of those things are factors that you need to look at and see what you're looking to do. There's no magic bullet of how it's going to fit for everyone. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis. and you're kind of just going to have to look into what is the best plan, what are the best rates, because you want to make sure that if you do decide to do it, you're getting a fixed rate and not a variable rate, because a variable rate can fluctuate very quickly. From after like the first 6 months, all of a sudden it jumps up and your payment is much higher than what you were expecting to do or what you were paying previously.
Sharon had asked about paying a company to do a debt consolidation. Is that pretty typical?
Usually you can do it, but you have to make sure that they are, if they're saying they're going to pay the debts, that they actually do pay the debts off. Because if you've paid them a service or anything along those lines, and all of a sudden you discover that you thought they were going to pay off a debt and then they never did, you're responsible. You're the one who signed the contract with the original creditor. So you want to make sure how do they get it paid? Do they send the money to you directly and you pay them off? Or are they saying, do they offer to pay them off directly? And how do they ensure doing that? And that's something that you're going to need to look through of how they process it and ask a lot of questions. I don't think asking questions is your friend in that matter. Ask as many as you can until you feel comfortable of it. And if something is not feeling right to you, I would not jump into it.
And this is a very basic question, but what is the benefit to people like Cheryl and Sharon if they consolidate their debts?
So depending on what it is, your credit utilization rate can drop down. So like if you had credit cards that had $10,000 and all of a sudden you paid them all off, now you're at 0%, and that looks a lot better, and that can affect your credit score to help it to rise. If you maintain a low credit score, credit payments on those, it helps you to build credits. If you make on-time payments, those on-time payments get reported to the credit bureaus, and it is able to show that you have a new credit and you're paying that off. So there are some benefits of them.
All right. What do we have next?
This one's from Andrea in Milwaukee. She writes, my student loans are now 3 months past due without me knowing who or where to pay. If they go into collections, what can I do? Do I need to make arrangements? So the question, will my student loans go to collections?
Kelsey, is it possible she lost track of where these student loans went?
Yeah, definitely. And one really confusing thing for everyone is the student loan landscape is changing constantly. So we would really recommend keeping up to date, checking government websites to find out updated information on what's happening in the student loan realm. There are private student loans, and then there are government loans that are given. So if she does have federal loans, she can go to studentaid.gov, and that will show any federal loan that she has. It'll show who the servicer is, how much money is owed, what payment is expected, and that will also give options for potential payment plans to try to get caught up or find out what options are available for you. If you don't know and you have a private loan, you can get that free credit report to try to see that should be listed on there as a loan, so you can find out who your servicer is and contact them about potential payment options, or if your loan is in collection status, what you can do there. It is really important just to kind of keep up to date on that. But if you do have specific questions, you can use the ABA free legal answers to post your question about your student loans, about your situation, and then a licensed accredited attorney will reach out to you to let you know kind of what options there are. But it is really important, if you do get a notice that you are being sued or a notice from a debt collector, feel free to reach out. That is something that we might be able to help with. It's a legal situation where we can try to, if we can assist, point you in the right direction to try to get that verification and find out what's happening to your specific loans.
And if you do have like a government loan, they can garnish your wages eventually if you aren't paying, right?
Yeah, as JJ mentioned, even if you are on certain public benefits and typically not collectible, federal money that's owed to the government is a different realm. So that is certainly something that you could be at risk for your tax returns being taken or your wages being garnished. So definitely something that you want to keep on track of.
All right. Good luck with that, Andrea. What do we have next?
This one's from Sharita in Milwaukee. Sharita says, I have the hardest time paying my bills. I am so behind and need help. What can I do? So the question, how do I get out from under debt?
I know we don't have a lot of details here, but we can probably give some general advice. JJ, do you want to offer some?
Yeah, like we said previously, it's prioritizing. You need to focus on housing, you need to focus on food, you need to focus on, if you have a car, maintaining the car so you can get to the places, work, things, medical things, school, all of those things. And then you have the secondary priorities of medicine and um, other things that are going to be necessary for you to function properly throughout the day. So those are priorities that you need to do. Talking to the financial planner at Goodwill, at GreenPath, all of those are the best ways to probably start creating a budget. They could assist you in doing that to really prioritize where is your money going, because a lot of people lose track of like exactly what they're spending on or what the necessities are, and then they can get you more focused on that, and then maintain that focus of this is what I need to do. These are the things I don't need at the moment.
Yeah. Annette, are we at our last question?
This is their last one.
All right.
It's from Tina in Waukesha. Tina says, I have $70,000 in credit card debt. I have $117,000 in mortgage and $45,000 equity. Plus, I have household and life insurance and utilities. The mortgages are both paid by renters. I've gone from $88,000 in annual income to $45,000. I'm not behind on anything but worry every day. What should I do? I start a part-time job this week for extra income. So to summarize Tina's question, how do I attack my debt on a reduced income?
Yeah, that's got to be frustrating when you're used to making pretty much double, and then your salary gets cut or there's a change in your job, and all of a sudden you have to reassess how your money is being spent, and that can be really stressful.
Yeah, and we understand like the stress of these situations is so high. Like it is extremely overwhelming. Even if you're like I think Tina had mentioned not behind yet, that's fantastic, but that looming dread is really understandable. So reaching out to get some financial planning, that Milwaukee Financial Empowerment Center, Green Path, Goodwill, being able to kind of sit down and plan a budget, something that works for you, because everybody's circumstances are different. Everybody has different priorities or needs. So making sure that your immediate needs are met, but then discussing, with your reduced income, maybe you were making greater payments on your credit card before, but now you're going to have to scale back on your credit card to prioritize other payments, which is certainly understandable, but just understanding, with a financial planner, getting that budget down, something that is workable, can help relieve some of the stress. And then always remembering, if somebody does have a debt, like let's say the credit card gets left behind, which sometimes, that happens, you have to prioritize other things. Remembering if you get that collection notice, or if you get a notice that you're being sued on the debt, that there are resources like legal action out there, you can reach out to us. That can be an extremely overwhelming, frustrating thing. There's no embarrassment or shame behind it. Like that's why we're here. We are here to help. And unfortunately, we get a lot of these types of cases. So knowing that there's resources out there, and then just remembering, right when you get that notice, reach out right away. It can be easy to try to put it off or feel overwhelmed, but then we can at least help discuss what your options are. Hopefully it never gets to that point, and that's why financial planning is a fantastic option, so you can try to prevent some of the legal issues that arise, but, they may come up, and that's why it's good to know that we're here.
Well, I think a lot of people assume if I'm talking to a lawyer, it's going to cost me money that I don't have. Is that the case with legal action?
Nope. Legal action, we provide free legal services. So some of our projects do have income requirements. So we would screen you in when you contact us. If for some reason we aren't able to take your case, or if maybe you don't meet our income requirements, there are referrals that we would provide. So we would never turn somebody away empty-handed. We would be able to provide resources and a path forward, so that they have the assistance that they need.
And you mentioned a resource a couple times, Goodwill. Are you talking about the clothing store?
Yep, they have financial planning resources. So if you go to Goodwill's website, you can see some of the financial resources that they have.
Oh, something else new I learned today. Well, that is actually all the time we have for today. If you would like to submit a question to a future Ask Contact 6 segment, you can use the QR code. We will have it on the screen in a bit. Or if you can go to fox6now.com, you can click on the blue Ask Contact 6 button. Kelsey and JJ, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a great discussion. Thank you also to all the people who make this recording possible, including our executive producer, Sarah Smith, our editor, Dave Machuda, chief photographer, Kale Zimney, Tim Primo on the video switcher, and Craig Sween in graphics. I'm Jenna Sachs. Thanks for joining us.